Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Melinda Hart. You are watching Stamping with Hart. I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up, and today we are looking at the Lazy Days bundle from our 2023-2024 annual catalog and the In Color collection for 2023 to 2025. So what I'm doing here is just showing you I did the same card layout in all 5 in colors here, from left to right. That's Moody Mauve, Pebbled Path, Copper Clay, Boho Blue, Wild Wheat. And now here is a stepped up version of the card. So here's what today's video is actually about. I attended something called Creativity Now, which I'll talk more about in a minute. But this, what you're looking at here, is a simple version of a card and then a stepped up version of the same card, where we're just doing a little bit more. If you want to go a step further with your card, if you just want to keep it, basic, if you consider yourself a new card maker or you like to keep your project simple, that is what all 5 cards in those in colors are. And I did one card where I took it a step further. So for those of us who are seasoned crafters, or for people who want to get a little bit more into technique or want to use a little bit more of that product, that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to make the version of the card that is simpler first, and then we're going to dress it up so that you can see that. But I have to say, I absolutely love the Lazy Days bundle. It's so much fun, so nice to work with. And you can just take a quick look at all of the different sentiments here. This is just a really simple, I can't even call it a fun fold. It's really just, there's a little window cut out using the deckled rectangle, and then just, there are a lot of different sentiment options that we have with Lazy Days. So I tried to play around with that a little bit and do a little bit of the variety there so that you could see that as well. So before I jump into this, I do want to let you know I do have a free project sheet for today's card layout, and then I will have instructions for the slightly stepped up version of the card as well, which is more technique than it is, cuts or measurements. But this is a really fun bundle to work with. You can find the link in the description box below if you are interested in getting the free project sheet for today's cards. Okay, so one of the reasons why I am working with, this is a color called Copper Clay. And one of the reasons why I am featuring this color in this video is because I currently have my In Color Club open for the month of July. You can register now, and it is running, the registration is open from now, which I'm filming this June 26th, and it's going to close on July 3rd, 2023. So if you are interested, I would recommend getting on my email list, or you can message me if you would like more information about the club, and I will be happy to send that information to you. I have a link below where you can sign up for my email, or if you, like I said, you want to message me, you can do that as well, and I would be happy to reach out to you. So I decided to do In Color Club a little bit different this month, and what we are doing is a separate registration each month of club. So if you just want to collect one color, you just collect that one color. If you want to collect the variety of colors, you could do that as well. And I include a class as part of each In Color club so that you can get ideas as to how to use your new club products right away. So here with this card, right now we have a basic layout. So the cut for the card base is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, and that's in Copper Clay. Then I took a piece of basic white and I trimmed that down to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. That's going to be for the inside of the card. Now I did cut 2 other pieces of basic white 4¼ by 5½ inches. And that's because I want to show you something when it comes to cutting out our dies with the Lazy Days stamp set. So we'll come to that in just a moment. So this is actually my Simply Chamois. If you guys don't have one of these, it's just a quick way to clean your stamps. I highly recommend it. I'll have to tell you guys a little story. I actually forgot my Simply Chamois. I'm sort of travel crafting right now. Oh, here's that stamp set. So it's called the Lazy Days bundle. That is the stamp set. There is a coordinating set of dies. You can see this is a fabulous set of dies that we have here. I'm pointing out the differences between the independent rocking chair, and then there's an outline for a stamped rocking chair that you can die cut. There are a good amount of independent die cut pieces where you don't need to coordinate it with a stamp, but then they also have a lot of dies to accompany all of the stamps so that you can build out these fabulous scenes using this bundle. Now, I'm going to recommend a foam pad, a foam mat, something with some cushion to it. If you have a mouse pad, just something that you can use for just a little bit of cushion for when you're stamping. We're going to be using photopolymer stamps today. And I find that if you are stamping with a photopolymer stamp that is larger, like this throw rug stamp, without having that extra cushion there, it could be, you might not get the best impression. So sometimes you just need to stamp it once or twice. But I find if you have that little bit of cushion there, it really helps to give you a clean, perfect impression of the stamp every time. So that is something that I recommend. We are stamping in copper clay. So we are doing tone on tone. And let me tell you about the inspiration behind this card. This is the little side table that has the drinks on it. The detail on this is so beautiful. And here is the stamped rocking chair. The die cut rocking chair without the stamp is also fabulous, but this is just, there's so much detail on it. It's so good. So we are going to be stamping all in the same color. At least this is for the first card. So I did want to feature both the stamp set and the dies in the bundle. If you want to keep it even simpler than that and just literally stamp a scene on a white piece of cardstock, you could do that. Just change the arrangement where you literally stamp the rocking chair and the table right there on the rug. And then that could be your scene, right? I'm going to take it a step further where we are actually incorporating dies and pieces. So what I'm going to be doing here is using a little bit of washi tape. This is a retired washi from last year's holiday catalog, just to kind of hold these dies in place so that I can die cut these. And then let me tell you a little bit about the inspiration for today's video. Number one, I have been working with the in colors quite a lot because I have been working behind the scenes on each month's club. May was Moody Mauve, June was Pebbled Path, and then July is going to be Copper Clay. So I'm working on designing that class behind the scenes now. I am planning on featuring the Lazy Days bundle, but I attended something called Creativity Now. It was an exclusive event for demonstrators with Stampin' Up, and it was an incredible event. I took away so much valuable information. I really enjoyed it. I just thought it was really fantastic. We had a whole mix of things that we were able to do. We were able to make cards right along with the presentations, but they do make a replay available so that we can go back and make the cards later if we want to. They had multiple demonstrators, multiple presentations, and one of the things that they featured was the simple version of a card versus a more advanced or stepped up version of the same card. And I thought to myself, that is really not something that I do very much. What I will say, probably the most similar thing for me that I do in these videos is when I make the actual paper pumpkin cards, which is a simpler, card design, and then I start showing you guys alternate cards, right? Like that's a version of this. But what I really loved, and they had done it multiple times, was they were trying to address all card makers. So they were trying to make sure that they, had the new demonstrators and the new stampers there, that they felt confident making their card with a simple card, right? They're not too much involved in it, right? And then if you did want to incorporate a little bit more product, a little bit more of a technique, then you could do that and you could step up your card. And that way, that really addressed making all of the like intermediate to advanced crafters, or the people who've been crafting for a really long time and maybe have a lot of products in their collection that they like to use. That really helps everybody feel like they can participate and make the card that they want to make for this event. So it was incredible. I absolutely loved it. And the number one takeaway for me, just aside from the overall event being so fantastic, I can't wait to attend the next one, is I thought I have to do this. I have to do this too. Now, let me just say really quickly about this. I wanted to show you. So this is the piece of basic white that is cut to 5.5 inches. And this piece, this die cut, is actually a little bit longer than 5.5 inches. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. I would say if you are like pre-cutting pieces and then die cutting with it, if you need the length of that full piece, then you're going to want to cut it at about 6 inches or maybe 5.75 inches, but 5.5 is just a hair short. Now for me, I actually don't need the whole piece. I really only need 4.25 inches of it. So I'm not even cutting the whole thing. I'm just taking a piece of scrap paper, a piece of my scrap basic white, and I'm going to just cut the strip there because that's what I'm using as the detail on the top of each of the 5 simpler versions of this card. So I have a basic version of this card, and then I have a stepped up version. So I wanted to show you this. This is as you're die cutting this out. Now, if you do want that pull, just make sure you cut the whole piece. I just wanted to really say, I wanted to point out that is a very large statement piece die. And that seems to be a theme of mine lately. Now, just a heads up, and you're going to see this from me soon. That die that I just showed you fits perfectly in length with the horse and sleigh. So yeah, fabulous. Now here is the deckled rectangle die that I'm going to be cutting out that little window on the front of my card. And what I'm showing you here is just to get your line up. You can either measure out the trim so that you know how much to leave at the top, or just lay the trim down like I do. You can eyeball it so that you kind of have the position for your rectangle. Now, the way I was filming this, I cut this, I was arranging it as it was sideways and not like lined up with my eye, like looking directly down at it. So I did end up cutting this rectangle just very slightly crooked. So, if I had to do it over again, I would have just used the washi and lined it up to my eye, but I was trying to get it on camera and I was in a different spot where I typically record. So yeah, it happens. But basically, you're just going to use this same die or whatever die you want to use to cut your window, whatever size. I really like this size. And I'll make sure that I have the measurements and everything in the free project sheet that you can download, the link in the description box below. But yeah, just wanted to make sure I had enough room at the top there. And then we're just going to trim that out. We're not going to need that inside piece, so you can save that outer rectangle that we just cut out. You can save that for another day, another card project. So I just decided that I was going to make a basic card. I wanted to see it in all 5 colors. And then I decided to do one stepped up version of the card, which is kind of like my takeaway for creativity now. I would like to try to do this a little bit more often, and you guys can let me know in the comments if this is something that you like to see, or if you don't feel like you need to see a simple versus a stepped up version of a card. But I thought it was a great idea. So that was something that I thought, you know what, I definitely don't point that out enough, when I'm doing maybe demonstrating bundles, or suites for you guys. So that's definitely at the front of my mind. Now, I decided to line up two separate stamps and basically turn it into one stamp, and that was Welcome to Our Street. So these are interchangeable, and you can arrange them, in whatever way you want. It's really cute the way that you can kind of interchange these sentiments or the greetings, whichever you call it, in this particular stamp set. But there's a good amount of them. But I thought Welcome to Our Street was very unique. So if you are part of the welcome committee, right, in your neighborhood, then this is something to consider. I think that this is not something that we see every day with a set, but I think hospitality, especially right now where we have all been so separated and isolated for such a long time, and now we're all starting to come back together again. I think it's a really nice gesture. And I think it's a nice icebreaker. If you have nothing to talk about with the brand new person who just moved in on your street or into your neighborhood, then you can start the conversation with a really pretty handmade card customized just for them. Okay, so we just glued our inside panel in. I did not have my bone folder with me, so I just sort of made do with my multi-purpose glue. But I would recommend the bone folder if you have one. I think that that's a great tool, especially if you're a beginner crafter and maybe you don't have one yet. That is definitely something worth looking into because it's so helpful. I use it for so many things. Now, I decided to bring in my Seal Plus here for the die cut pieces that we're going to be decorating on the bottom part of the card. So we're going to position our glue just on the bottom portion of this throw rug. And that's because part of the throw rug is going to overlap over the open rectangle. And we just don't want any glue, right? Like right there. We just want to keep that dry. We just don't want any glue sticking because we want the card to open so that they can, read their sentiment or get whatever it is that you're going to be putting on the inside of the card. Although, because it's a window card, unless you're putting acetate there, which I did not, I wouldn't put a gift card or anything in there because it's going to pop right out. So it's up to you. But I would say, you could always include it in the envelope, but leave the card, really cute with this little open window here. Same thing with our table and with our rocking chair. So I'm focusing just a tiny bit of glue on those bottom legs on the little table, and then just along the side that's going to go on the cardstock. So I'm putting it on one side but not the other because I do not want that glue sticking on the part where my little table overlaps. I found that I lined up that edge with the cup, and that seemed to work for me every time. That was just sort of like the little mark that I made for myself when I was lining these up. And same thing with your rocking chair. So you can focus on the bottom part of the rocking chair, and then you can adhere the glue to one side. And I just felt like using the Seal Plus was a little bit cleaner, but it was a little bit fussy because it was a little bit awkward to use a tape runner with. Like I had to fold back the seal in a couple of places. So if I had my regular seal with me, it would have been a non-issue, but I only had my Seal Plus. And again, this is because I'm working outside of my normal craft room. I'm crafting in the car when my son is at his new school. He's not there long enough right now for me to drive home and then go back. It's a whole thing, which maybe I'll talk about sometime in the future. But for now, I have enough time that I could be getting some work done, but it's very interesting how I'm going about doing that. So here we have this simple version of the card, and I wanted to shout this part out for those of you who don't want to include the trim at the top. Still a really nice card if you don't want that really detailed piece, right? If you do have the adhesive sheets, I'm just shouting it out right now, use the adhesive sheet with that trim. Not so important with those pieces below, and actually we don't want to use it with the pieces below because in the fun part of the open window, you don't want that sticky. But up at the top with the trim, because it's so finely detailed, I would say use the adhesive sheets, but I used multi-purpose glue. So you could do whatever you want, but I'm just telling you that the adhesive sheets would be so much easier. And I'm including myself every time I tell you guys to do it. Telling myself to do it, and I am determined to find a place to put the adhesive sheets where it's more convenient. I think what I need to do is buy like 3 packs of adhesive sheets, keep one in my car, keep one in my dining room, keep one in my craft room, and that way I will always have one. So it's just, and you get plenty of sheets when you buy it. Big long sheets too, I could cut them up. So I just need to figure that out. But I love the trim. I thought the trim was a great, fun detail piece to put on this card and to sort of break it up a little bit. But just really, really cute. And you don't have to cut that window out of the center either. If you would just want that to be a, regular card front, make your scene, and then just have them open it without that, then that would be fine too. But this is the basic version of the card. So one color cardstock, two color cardstocks technically. So copper clay and basic white, and then one ink pad. So one bundle, one ink pad, 2 cardstock colors. Most card makers have at least this in their collection where you have one cardstock and one coordinating ink pad. And then you just start there with your bundle. So this is my simple version of the card. And then we're going to take the same card and we're going to step it up a little bit because I have the simpler version that I had actually made earlier. But this was what I wanted to point out to you too. Now, I will say that if I was leaving it there, I would probably do the in color dots up on that trim there if I wasn't adding anything else. But because I'm stepping up this same card, we're gonna be adding a few things up there to the trim. Now, one of the great things about Lazy Days is that it's a scene builder set. These really appeal to me. Oh, and if you guys have this little bit of overlap there where you don't cut it, 100% perfectly, just open it up and trim off those little pieces there. So this is the simple version of the card, and we are going to be stepping it up here in just a minute. The Lazy Days bundle rather is ideal for creating a variety of welcoming scenes. There's birds, there's a little birdhouse, there's clouds, there's hanging plants, there's like plants that you could put on the floor. There are all of these different things that you can incorporate. And there's ivy, which is one of the things that we're going to be using to step up our cards. Here's one of the first ways that I am stepping up this card. I am incorporating Stampin' Blends. This is the Daffodil combo pack. I colored the liquid in the glass, the Daffodil Delight Light, and now I'm just adding a couple of dots of the dark at the bottom of the glass, like if you were drinking lemonade and it had settled like towards the bottom of the glass. Just one of those very small details. You don't have to use both, but that's what I did. And then we're going to be incorporating the copper clay Stampin' Blends as well. So what we're going to start doing now is incorporating some more coordinating product. This is where I will shout out In Color Club, because In Color Club is a great way to collect your in colors. You focus on one color each month. So you get your cardstock, you get your ink pad, you get your refill, you get your Stampin' Blends, you get the jute trim in that color, you get the in color dots in the copper clay color. So it's all focused on just copper clay. And then you have that coordinating class. It's a pre-recorded class. You get an exclusive PDF tutorial to go with it as well. So you can, play around with the new color that you got for that month. And it's a great way to collect your products over time. So you're collecting it over 5 months. Now, like I said, 2 of the months are over, but we still have 3 months to go. We still have July, August, and September. So July's color is copper clay. August's color is going to be boho blue. And then we're going to end In Color Club in September with wild wheat, which I thought would be a great time because wild wheat and copper clay are going to be absolutely perfect for fall crafting. Okay, and so what I'm doing here is this is copper clay light, and I am just very lightly going over some of the details on the rocking chair stamp with my copper clay light. So you get all of the definition and the details just by stamping the image. If you want to step it up, if you want to start collecting Stampin' Blends, if you want to start incorporating these alcohol-based markers and blending the colors in slightly together and starting to get a little bit into like highlight and shadow and all of that, and you're somebody who really appreciates color coordination, then I think that you'll really enjoy the stepped up version of the card. And in the end, we'll compare so that you can see the difference there. But I'm doing the same thing here with the table where I'm layering in the light first. And the majority of the color that I used was actually the copper clay light all over the rocking chair and the table. I'm going to be bringing in a different color for our throw rug. I'm actually going to be bringing in ivory. I had this image in my mind of kind of a lot of those throw rugs that you see on people's porches, and typically it's like a really light color, right? Like a beige or a tan, or something like that. And I was like, I would like a combination of that. Now I came back in with the dark marker. So this is copper clay dark, and I'm just in those spots where I could just get a little bit of shadow or just create a little bit of a darker line. That's what I'm going to do here with the copper clay dark. You'll see that in just a minute. Here is ivory. I decided to use the brush tip side because I'm covering a larger area of the rug here. I just focused on the inner part of the rug and I left the outline alone, just the way that the stamp was. So with our alcohol-based markers, typically they recommend that you use the Memento Tuxedo Black ink because that is an ink that is safe to use with alcohol-based markers. But I have found that if we use the blends lightly, it's okay with our stamp pads as well. I didn't have a problem with anything smearing or blurring, but as you can see, I was a little bit light-handed here where it's just like these very light feathery strokes. Now, thinking ahead, if you decide you want to color the rug before you glue everything to the card, you can do that. This was just my way of stepping up the original card. I wanted you to see how I made the original card and then adding that little step up detail. Now here's the part where I started adding in copper clay dark, where I just started coming in, and it's very subtle, but you can see the definition, particularly when I finish and you could just look at the card. It's such a nice addition. So these are just very small details that I think go a long way with the card once you're done with it, particularly if you're new to working with Stampin' Blends. This is a fun way to get started on images like this one because you barely need anything and it really does add to it. Now, one thing that I didn't do that I would recommend that all of you do is put a piece of scrap paper down before you start coloring. It can bleed through the back of the cardstock just depending on how heavy-handed you are or if you're doing lots of layers. And because that is the inside of our card, we don't want that ink to transfer to the inside. So it didn't actually, do that with this card, which I was very happy about because I didn't think about it until after the fact. I'm very guilty of doing that. But just put a piece of scrap paper or a piece of scrap cardstock in between when you're coloring in those areas, and that will protect the inside of your card. So there you can see a little bit more closely the light and the dark combo of the copper clay. I absolutely loved it with the ink on the rocking chair and the table. I just thought that that really added to the scene, just added a lot more dimension, a lot more character to it if you want to step up your card. Now I have a strip of garden green cardstock here. You could use any green in the collection option that you happen to have on hand, or if you want to use white and color it green, however you want to do it. I just decided to use actual garden green cardstock to create my ivy. So we're going to be doing a little bit more die cutting now and a little bit more stamping now. One thing that I wanted to do by stepping up this card, making it even a little bit more welcoming, right? You all know those porches or those homes that have the beautiful landscaping and the fabulous, healthy, vibrant hanging plants, and they just have everything decorated so beautifully, right? And so if you're taking your welcoming porch card and you're stepping it up to that next level, I thought I have to do two really cool hanging plants, and we're going to incorporate some ivy in the trim because you just have to. It's too good. And when I had glued down the trim, and I'll mention this to you now, and I'll have it in the free project sheet as well. I only glued the top and then dotted some glue at the bottom of the trim. Those lines, all of those little detailed lines in between the top and the bottom of the trim there, actually don't have any glue on them. Okay, so here I am bringing in Shaded Spruce Dark, and I'm just kind of dotting at the sort of the base of each plant leaf. This is Old Olive Dark, and I'm kind of bringing that into the middle or the majority of the color of the leaf. I'm just very slightly coloring into the Shaded Spruce. And now this is Old Olive Light. And basically what I'm trying to do is kind of do an overall color here where I'm blending all three of those colors together. And the tips of those leaves are a little bit lighter green than the base. So these are both hanging plants. I just decided to keep them all green. I didn't do any kind of like floral coloring. This is the Moody Mauve Stampin' Blends combo. So I'm doing light for the pot, and then just for the very bottom of the pot, there's a line there, and I just colored that in the Moody Mauve Dark just to give it a little bit of contrast there. So two slightly different colors, but in that same color family. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the second pot so that they both look identical. So it's coordinated, it's matching, and maybe you're the one who has the fabulous porch. So a minute ago, I was mentioning the trellis not having glue on all of those little lines. If you use the adhesive sheet, you will have adhesive on the whole piece. So in that case, you may want to interweave your ivy before you put it down on the card. So entirely up to you. You'll see the way that I pieced the ivy in. So if you do decide to use your multi-purpose glue, which I know is the more popular glue. If you use the adhesive sheets, let me know in the comments. I'm very curious. But, you know, just depending on how you glue that piece down. And for those of you who are doing a horizontal card or a landscape layout on the card rather than portrait or vertical like I'm doing with this card here, then you can use that spindle and you could have the ivy coming down that, the post or the spindle, whichever you want to call it, along the side of that trim. So I think of those beautiful Victorian porches with all of that, what do I call it? It's just like a confection of a home almost, and it just has the most beautiful detailed trim. They don't make places like that anymore, and it's just one of my favorite style houses. So the Lazy Days apparently it appealed to a lot of different things that I like. So here's the ivy, and you can see when I overlay the ivy on top of the whole trim, which is the easiest way to do it, I felt like it covered a lot of the detail. I wanted to see both. So I thought that the best way to see both would be to kind of piece it up and tuck it in here, you know, here and there. So you are going to cover it up a little bit so that it looks, you know, lived in, like the ivy has had time to grow. But there's also a die cut that I cut out with our Moody Mauve Luster paper, and it's supposed to be, I think, a pillow for the rocking chair, but I just couldn't, it just didn't look right with the card for me, so I decided not to go with it. Maybe if I did in a different color or something, but I just decided not to use it. But that was the piece that I was just playing there with a moment ago because I was going to coordinate the pillow with our hanging plants. Okay, so here I was, because the Seal Plus was what I had with me. I did have the multi-purpose glue too. I just decided to try to use the Seal Plus with my leaves, but I would not do that again. So this is one of those things where when you don't have everything that you need in your craft room, it's humbling, and you remember what it's like when you didn't have everything under the sun in your craft room. So it is just a lesson to, once you have everything, you have the glue dots and you have this and you have that, all the things, you can use whatever you want. You have, everything at your disposal. But when you're traveling, maybe you don't have everything, or if you are working in a different space, or if you're moving, all of that. If you're like me, where you're kind of living out of your car almost because you're just spending a lot of time waiting around for, your kids or your grandkids or whatever that might be, then we can't take everything with us. So I may do with it, but it would not be my preferred adhesive for the ivy. But you can see the way I was just kind of chopping it up into pieces and just kind of tucking them here and there in the trim, so that I could still see a lot of the detail of the trim, but we could see that it had the ivy as well. And so here is basically the stepped up version of the card. I am going to add my in color dots and copper clay. I decided to go with the smallest dots. I just did 2 in the center of the trim, but you could have a lot of fun with that, and you could put that in a lot of different places if you would want to. But even just adding a few more stamps with our hanging plants, adding in a little bit of color there with our Stampin' Blends, bringing in a coordinating embellishment, just adding a little bit of shine, incorporating some of that ivy, which is a standalone die from Lazy Days. Doesn't that just build out the most beautiful scene? So it's the same scene, but just slightly stepped up from that original card idea from Creativity Now. Thank you so much. So before I end this video, let me just say this. In the month of June, which is going to be ending in just a couple of days, we have a special on our starter kit. So if you have been thinking about joining Stampin' Up, this is a fantastic time to do it. You save $56 on product in June, as opposed to $26 when we're running our regular starter kit offer. So there's that right away. Here are the 2 cards together, by the way. You save 20% as a demonstrator. You get free shipping on the starter kit. And you get first access to our upcoming holiday catalog, which will be launching in September. Pre-order will start for it in August, and you could get your savings, your 20% savings on a holiday product. If you have any questions about joining, please reach out to me. You can email me, direct message me. I would love to talk to you about it. All right, I will see you in the next video.